We'll call this meeting to order at 7 p.m. on Monday, December 16th, 2024. And I just wanted to say real briefly before we get started here that I'm sure I speak for everyone on the board when I say we're here with heavy hearts tonight. Ironically enough, gathering in a school that's 5 miles away from a school that has a completely different atmosphere these days. So, good thoughts and hope for healing. Okay, first off is consent agenda items. We have minutes. Minutes for the December 2nd, 2024 school board meeting, and then we have general fund vouchers 182863 through 183019 and 293112 through 293140, and purchasing card transactions dated 10/21/24 through 11/20/24. Is there any of these consent agenda items that anyone would like to pull out and deal with separately? If not, I would look for a motion to approve the consent agenda items as presented.
Sure, I move to accept the consent agenda as presented.
Okay, thank you, Tom. Do I have a second?
I can second that, Fessler.
Megan? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries unanimously 5-0. And there are also some professional staffing items unnecessary for vote. So then we will move on to public comments. Do we? Okay. All right, then in that case, while we're getting signed in, I will read my little piece here. In accordance with school board policy 167.3, the McFarland School Board welcomes public comment during regular meetings from individuals who are present at the meeting, participating virtually, or have sent an email to the board president or superintendent. Participants are required to register to speak upon arriving at that meeting, provide their name, address, and any group affiliation before speaking. Address only topics within the legitimate jurisdiction of the board. Recognize that the board will not respond to comments during the meeting unless the item is on the published agenda. Limit your comments to under 5 minutes or 600 written words, and of course, maintain decorum. We do have public comment tonight from Melanie Roback. Welcome.
Thank you. Kind of flying by the seat.
Your perfect attendance record is still intact.
Okay, I'm Melanie Roback. I'm a parent of 2 in the McFarland School District. I reached out to you about a concern about open enrollment and thought it was just worth saying more through a public remark in case there was broader interest. Through the lead up to the referendum and since then, there have been some mentions of how open enrollment impacts our budget. And as the board prepares to approve in January the number of open enrollment spots available in each grade level for next school year, I wanted to share some concerns, some thoughts. And my overarching messages are, 1, please, and I know this is a very thoughtful board and an administration, I don't need to say this, but just take caution to target class sizes that really do serve the district, which is especially the students, but also the teachers and staff who are chiefly responsible for meeting their needs. I'm concerned about the rising student needs. I'm concerned about vulnerable staff morale and the squeeze that they're experiencing, which I don't think most parents really maybe know about. And I'll say more in a moment. 2, more specifically, it's just a request that we aim to keep class sizes where they have historically been in McFarland rather than just, merely staying within guidelines. It sounds like hitting the ceiling on our guidelines for class size is not typical, and it noticeably impacts teacher support of individual students in these largest class sizes within our guidelines. And my third main message is about your discussions here, whether today or another meeting. Please be open. I mean, of course, about the numbers and considerations surrounding open enrollment. I know you will be, but also be open about the needs, the gaps, the challenges, and what could be helpful, supposing the parent community is interested in rallying some additional support, because I certainly would be. And a quick note for anyone watching, open enrollment is what allows parents to apply to send their child to a school in a different district. So in January, districts have to set and announce how many spots will be available for open enrollment. There's a funding component to this. Schools are funded on a per student basis. Here in McFarland, the district gets about $12,500 per resident student. Anybody can correct me like later or at this. And a little less than that, about $9,000 per non-resident student. That is an open enrolled student. Enrollment in most districts in Wisconsin, I believe, certainly in Dane County, has been going down because of declining birth rates. This is a funding challenge for most districts, including McFarland. So open enrollment can fill in some of the gaps from declining enrollment, which can be important for the budget, can also fill in other gaps to create consistency in grade level cohort sizes so that from year to year, the staff needed at any grade level isn't constantly fluctuating up and down. I'm going to skip some of that info because I think that'll get filled in, I'm sure, at some point over the next couple meetings of discussions. With that, I'm just concerned about the district's challenges on a few different levels, and the decisions about open enrollment creates an opportunity to bring this up. I'm wondering if small or large efforts in the community, especially from parents, could help shore up the district against some of the challenges it's facing. And by the way, I just want to acknowledge that the referendum was huge. The challenges that I'm talking about, I think, are maybe minuscule compared to the fiscal cliff that we avoided by passing that November referendum. But I'm concerned about the growing needs of students. I'm concerned about staff morale as teachers try to do more with less already, and as schools endure sort of external uncertainties and stressors over which they have limited control. And let me explain. I mean, I think a lot of parents might not realize, and I'm going to run out of time, but you know, as an educator, admittedly not in McFarland schools, the rising needs of students is readily apparent. And when April's referendum came along, I think they actually, I mean, that was a minimum. They needed more, but it would have been ridiculous to ask for more. And so I think that those cuts, the $1.2 million in cuts or so, were a huge blow. And that's just how it had to be. These cuts have been established as ongoing, and it was kind of established that these cuts would include some slightly rising class sizes. The teachers are feeling a squeeze, I would think. There's so much more I know I'm not going to get to say. I think they're feeling squeezed. I think they couldn't possibly say that they're feeling squeezed because we just passed this referendum. And I think that these open enrollment numbers are vital. The holidays are coming. No message is too simple. No gift card is too large. But also, no donation to the school district is either. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Melanie.
Do we have anything else, Angie?
No.
Okay, then we'll move on to the McFarland High School student report. Welcome.
Hi.
Uh-oh, there's somebody there. Here it coming.
Okay. All right.
Hey, I think we're still having that same issue. Oh, it does sound familiar.
All right. There we go. Okay. Hi, everybody. So I'm here. And first of all, I want to share your sentiments from the beginning of the meeting about, the horrible school shooting today. And just, yeah, I hope that like hoping for healing. Okay, anyways, here's the student report. So, some highlights. On Thursday and Friday, the 5th and the 6th, DECA hosted Move a Muscle events at the boys and girls basketball games. And shirts resold at the door. Shirts were sold at the door, and all that money earned aims at advocating for those with muscular dystrophy and creating awareness for the disease, and it was a great success. And congratulations to all the Skills USA members who competed in districts at Watertown High School yesterday. Special recognition goes to Sawyer Larson, he's a junior at McFarland High School, who received first place in cabinet making. So on Saturday, December 7th, McFarland High Schoolers helped out at the St. Nick's shop at the Municipal Center. They helped buy presents, help kids pick out presents for their family at very cheap prices, and wrap the kids' gifts. There were tons of people. The line was like literally out of the door, and it was a lot of fun. But unfortunately, this is probably going to be the last year of this awesome event. It was really fun. I don't know if you can see in like the very background of the picture on the bottom, there's me and Hade. She's in this meeting, but you know her audio. Yeah. Then the Winter Wonderland Craft and Vendor Fair. The vendor fair seemed like a huge success. Tons of different booths were there, like woodwork, food, crafts, and more. There were also a lot of people, and everyone looked like they were really enjoying themselves. Some MHS students got to set up booths and sell their stuff, which was also really cool to see. I mean, I wasn't there, but a friend of mine who's in Connect wrote this, Riley Keller. Coming up, on Saturday the 21st, lacrosse players will attend a volunteer opportunity downtown during the Run Santa Run Marathon from 2:30 to 4:30, manning the Hershey's Kiss and Bundt Cake stations and handing out treats and water. If you guys are attending or want to do that. And today was the first political science full session at McFarland. In it, all current political science students debated bills they made. There was a speech given by the state senator Kelda Roys, who was super interesting. And for each bill, a student gives an opening speech. Then there's debate times, then a closing speech, then a recess to discuss one-on-one, and finally everyone votes. 5 bills were debated this morning, and on Wednesday another 5 will be debated. It's a really unique experience, and I'm really happy we get to have it. That's why I'm dressed kind of nice today. Then Miss Lindy is honored to announce that our very own McFarland art students will be crafting portraits once again for the Memory Project. The Memory Project is a charitable nonprofit organization that invites art students and solo artists to help cultivate global kindness by creating portraits for children around the world who have faced substantial challenges, such as violence, war, extreme poverty, neglect, and/or loss of parents. The participants create these portraits to help children feel valued and important, to know that many people care about their well-being, and to provide a special childhood memory in the future. Since 2004, the Memory Project has created more than 130,000 portraits for children in 47 countries. Now athletics. So girls basketball had a nice conference win over Portage last Friday night. Boys basketball had 2 nice conference wins over Edgewood and Sauk Prairie this week. Boys hockey had 2 nice conference wins over Sauk Prairie and Milton. Girls hockey had a close game with Beloit but came up short. Boys wrestling had a nice conference win over Oregon on Friday night, and they also took 3rd place at the Wanakee Invitational on Saturday. Girls wrestling competed at the Wanakee Invite on Friday night, and our girls took 4th. Boys swimming had a successful week when taking 1st place in the Badger Small Relays and 1st place at the Fort Atkinson Invitational. McFarland High School dance also had a very good day on Saturday at the Watertown Invite. They took 1st place in D4 Palm and 3rd place in D2 Jazz. Now, do you have any questions?
Why is it the last year for that St. Nick's event?
Well, I'm actually a little confused on it. But they said that they couldn't use the original place to do the event anymore, and they're struggling to find a different one. And I guess there's also a lack of funding for it, because they have to buy a ton of gifts, and they sell these nice gifts for $1 to $4 for the kids. So it's really sad, actually, because I was there and it was really fun for the kids. But yeah. If you have any other questions?
And you loved having high school kids, helping them. make those selections. So thanks for doing that. And actually, that line was out to the street shortly after 9 a.m.
Oh my gosh.
I know you weren't at the craft vendor market, but I was there and it was fantastic.
It sounded really
like you walked up and there were all these students that gave you a rundown and a map of everywhere you could go, and it was very well done. So, congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. Any
As a-
other things?
And thank you for the updates on the day-to-days around school, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks.
All right, goodbye. Enjoy your winter break.
You too.
Thank you.
Okay, now, we've got some informational items, the first of which, Mr. Mahoney and Mr. Tarnitzer are going to go over the district safety plan and school safety review. Ironically enough.
Thank you, everyone. Want to share the sentiments, our thoughts and prayers go out to all those involved in the awful situation with our neighbors here. I think it's important to remember how much this affects our community. We have students, staff, families who attend or work at Abundant Life, and so it hits really close to home. So yes, a timely conversation today. Every 3 years, we come before you and share our school safety plan and provide a report to you. You'll be taking action on that, should you choose to do so later this evening. And that is really just to affirm our safety plan, but it's a good time to provide some updates for you on some of the things that we're doing. So, the first thing is just to talk to you about the Act 143. It was brought into law in 2017, and it has some requirements about public and private schools and the information that we are required to produce. It is in best practice to do these things. We would do them if there was a statute or not, but we are in compliance with these statutory requirements that we're going to review with you today. And that is due the first of every year is when we need to make sure we have all that stuff tied up and sent in. So those minimum 5 requirements. So the first part is blueprints and maps. And the Critical Response Group, or CRG mapping, you may have heard about that. We received a grant to help us with our mapping. And those blueprints have been distributed to local law enforcement. They're also accessible in our emergency response plans and in our district safety drive. So in the event of a critical incident, it provides those emergency providers who really stepped up today at Abundant Life, and we are blessed with a great team here in our district as well, that they would respond and have the information they need. You also needed to have an updated school safety response plan. Now, ours is based on the standard response protocol, which most districts in Dane County use that protocol. It was developed by the I Love You Guys Foundation. And it really is not only used throughout our community, throughout the county, but throughout the state and nation. Very popular model because of its simplicity.
If you guys don't know about the I Love You Guys Foundation, I'm actually really familiar with it because the girl who it's based after is the niece of a friend of mine. So if you don't know about the I Love You Guys Foundation, I really suggest you look into it, especially the backstory associated with it, because it is based off of a high school.
Is it relatively new?
No, I believe it was 10 years ago.
Okay.
But it was a school shooting, and the victim was the niece of a friend of mine, and it's nice to see that something positive could come out of such a tragic situation. But
Yep, that was, I believe, what she texted to her parents.
yeah, that was the last thing she said before her life was taken.
And it is a very powerful model and been very effective. And that also, part of that includes a standard reunification model or method that we have practiced for reunification. Also, another part of this is doing a school safety assessment. So that involves, making sure that your facilities are secure. We do this annually with our student and staff safety coordinator for our district currently. That is former detective Mike Clements. And he has done an excellent job doing these assessments. The school resource officers and other law enforcement often will do little checks, check doors and things to make sure that we're secure. The athletic director and director of buildings and grounds do the same and are involved in that process as well. And then the last two are about training and drills. So we have an annual training on our protocols with students and staff, but we also, while we start the year with that, we are constantly practicing, reminding, refreshing throughout the year. Typically, that's done for staff through scenarios that are tabletop activities where we say, you know, this has happened, you know, a kid cut their leg out at recess. What do you do? There's a gas leak. How do you respond? But we also do drills. We are required to do monthly drills. And of course, we do those and we try to rotate which type of drill that we do. So November, for example, is when we typically do the full lockdown drill that we had and was very effective this past month. So we continue to do those drills at least monthly. So those are the minimum requirements of the statute and how we're meeting them. So getting to our response plan specifically, they were really heavily updated in 2024. And it wasn't so much that a lot of what we were doing changed, it was more how it was formatted and ease of accessibility, providing a lot of consistency across buildings. So much more user-friendly format to be accessed in a crisis, but also a lot more detail put onto it. It's similar throughout the district, but there's some specifics by building with the, you know, who to contact, the maps, who are the members, those kind of things. And it's based on that standards response protocol, which you'll see on the right side of the screen there. The options of hold, secure, lockdown, evacuate, and shelter. So we practice all of those within a school year. Sometimes, as you know, we do have actual events. Typically that is involving a hold drill, where you've heard about those, but a hold actual activity in our schools. The contents are very detailed. I mean, it's got all the logistics of our how to contact people, where the utilities are, those kind of things. Some specific definitions of the steps and the processes, the threat assessment protocol, crisis response processes that we use, how we communicate during a crisis, what people's different roles are, how we would debrief and recover in the event of an actual situation, and also our training and drill protocols are included within that. You will see that there's a link within that to our reunification plan. These are documents that we don't share publicly just for safety and security reasons. However, we do have that information available for the board's review. And speaking specifically of our reunification, the thing that you saw today, you've seen in other situations, is reunification takes time. It requires a great deal of patience for everybody involved because you want to make sure that each kid goes home with the person they're supposed to go home with. And so it requires a lot of advanced planning. We have practice at a site with how we would facilitate the reunification process, both an off-site one, but then we're also focusing on protocols for an on-site reunification that would be sort of a light reunification. Let's say there's a critical incident in one building. Those students are evacuated, but we have a secure, in the other buildings. How would you release those students? Things like that. So it includes transportation and those kind of things there. I want to talk a little bit about our district safety committee. That was started in my first year as superintendent here we form that group that meets monthly to review our safety aspects. You can see who's included in that group. Other members of the administrative team are always welcome. We always share out with the other administrators who are not there what we discussed. But we talk about our trainings, our drills, our policies. We have created a comprehensive annual checklist for our safety team to follow to make sure that we are periodically reviewing these things. So instead of going, oh, we have a professional development day coming up next week, we should do something about safety. We have it, it's all laid out in advance. So everybody knows what to expect, what types of drills we're doing, how we're gonna communicate those. That group has been really powerful, and the addition of that district student and staff safety coordinator has really helped that leadership with the group, because that person is really the expert, and they're the ones that are collaborating with other experts in other districts who are doing that important work. We have been just in awe, frankly, of what Mike Clements has been able to accomplish in his short time in the role. He is a doer. I will say, just to get a little bit off script today, it was within minutes that he was here and in the district office and with Officer Zietsma and our directors talking about how we should respond to this situation. And he doesn't live on site here. So we're just really grateful for him. And then he responded and, went to buildings, and his presence was very impactful. So we were very fortunate. And so what's next for this group is we have some goals. Of course, we're going to continue to comply with Act 143, of course, but we're looking at, continuing to refine with building safety assessments. For example, one of the issues we have is we want our classes to be full of windows so kids can see not only outside, but into the hall and bring in as much light as we can into those spaces, but it does leave students really exposed in some rooms. So we're looking at efforts for how to provide better security and concealment in those spaces. Additional training for district staff who are assigned to roles, and really that includes looking at events. We've taken a big step forward with planning for events. Before each athletic event, there's a team that gets together, reviews the protocols, what to do in an event of an emergency. That never happened before. So we're really pleased with that. But looking at some targeted training. And then there's just some, facility issues that come up from doors that don't lock the way they should, and we have to refine those, though. That's a big part of what the goals are of that group. So that's the kind of an overview of the plan. I welcome your thoughts and questions on the plan.
I think we receive a monthly report about the drills that they've held in school. And that one item you just talked about, the facilities. It seems like you aren't waiting for something to be reported. You actually experience it during these monthly drills. And then they address it right away. So I think that's excellent. After reading through those reports, I have to say it's the most comprehensive, thorough, written report that I've ever seen.
It's impressive.
Yeah, it's very impressive.
They're almost 60 pages long.
Yes.
Like,
And it's
Sorry
unique
about
to each
that.
building.
no,
Which is nice. A couple things. This has to do with what happened to the Madison. Will that have any impact on our discussion about the use of cell phones by students in the buildings?
I don't believe so. I think our students, 612, we have an off and away policy, which I think is different than some other districts. Some districts have it's collected at the door kind of a thing. And I think our off and away policy allows that in an event of an emergency that students could access their phones. What we have found is that is something that parents are very concerned about when I talk to colleagues or read things from people across the country that have that collecting at the door, like some have like a secure thing, that's the most frequent concern that they hear is in an event of a safety emergency. Parents are very concerned that they wouldn't be able to access. So that's what I think at this point,
Yeah.
but.
We went to a show uptown, and I had never seen this before, but when you entered, they had a bag, and you drop your phone in that bag, and then that goes off to be, I don't know, programmed or, however it's done, and then you have this bag with you. That was interesting to me.
Yeah, I know a lot of events that have like big names will do something like that.
Yep.
I will say, I was very happy that my child had his phone, because it was just nice to touch base with him and, and I'm sure Megan, you went through something similar with your kids. So I do appreciate the cell phone policy that we currently have from the safety perspective, and I hope it continues.
I just wanted to mention the fact that we need to mention to parents that Mike Clement was our first school resource officer and worked there for a number of years. And so, in a sense, to get him to be now kind of in charge of this whole program, he knows, he has the lay of the land, as it were. And in fact, many of the protocols that we're following were basically established by Mike. So I feel so good about having that individual in charge of this. It's just very reassuring.
And I certainly concur, Bruce, but the buildings have changed over the years too, since he's been our first school resource officer. But he's quick to learn. I mean,
Yeah,
You
he's
can
quick
ask,
study,
you can
yeah.
ask for a better person. The other thing that I found interesting was the layout of the classroom. Yeah, windows, natural light is terrific. The issue is, how can we cover those classrooms up just in case there is an active shooter? And again, probably we need some discussion on weighing sort of a safety feature versus the layout of a classroom that works best for teachers
It's
and the
always a
kids.
struggle.
But again, we always can put blinds in classrooms. We had talked about that when I was up there, it was just so expensive. So there are ways to address the safety of the classroom layout without infringing on what a classroom teacher feels is a good setup for kids.
Yes, and there's actually some even more cost-effective avenues that we're exploring. So some options of things that you can use that can be used more temporarily, that wouldn't be in place all of the time, that are even cheaper than blinds.
Then when I was reading through the plans, and I'll use I forget what category it was in. It was when there was some type of, I should have noted it, but I didn't. An emergency in the building, and the bottom bulletproof for some of the staff was staff who don't have direct responsibility, if the conditions warranted, are encouraged to help with student evacuation, whatever it was. Why wouldn't that be expected instead of just encouraged?
Yeah, and they really are
They
expected.
are, yeah.
I mean, that is one of, I would say, the staff at Indian Mound Middle School would attest to the fact that when we have a drill, if you don't have kids, it's great that you're supervising each other in your group, chatting and catching up with your colleagues, but really, we need your help on those lines. So that certainly is a pretty important, but yet simple correction that we could make. But it is the expectation that if you don't have kids, you need a help. And people, we don't need to remind people of that, though. Our staff are really good. It's just usually in a drill. It's like, oh, hey, I haven't seen you for a while. So we'd always tease each other about
And I certainly
supervising each
understand
other.
that, because we have exceptional staff that will take on
Yeah,
additional responsibilities, but
they're outstanding.
again, encouraged versus expected
Yes.
are two different things.
Yeah, and that's a simple change. I appreciate that.
Otherwise, I thought it was excellent.
It certainly is a different impact, I guess, tonight than it might have, on an ordinary night. Because you heard reunification plans were talked about over and over and over again at all the news conferences that they had. And they said, you know, the big Dean Clinic up there in the corner closed their doors so they could have the space to reunite everyone. So it's all about perspective, I guess.
It is.
I'm just so sad that we have to have plans like this. And I get really emotional about it, so I'm not gonna talk about it too much, but, you know, in this day and age, the fact that school shootings are becoming so much more the norm. But I appreciate the safety plans that you guys have in place, so that way, parents and staff and ultimately kids know that they're gonna be taken care of, if a situation arises.
Important. Agree.
Anything else? Thank you very much. We'll move on to the enrollment update provided by the same two gentlemen. Thank you. Welcome.
Oh, I sense you contributed to this first part, behind the
Hey, and
scenes.
you did a lot the last meeting too, you know, so.
Right.
Just one comment about the cell phone policy. I do think districts across, at least our county, have reflected on keeping phones with children. Certainly, my daughter was in Middleton during the incident out there. We were able to chat with her so that someone else didn't have to chat with her. So we could keep her. She contacted me today. She asked how I was doing today. So that was a little different. You know, she's in La Crosse, Wisconsin, but she was checking on me. So I do think that the policy this board and administration's put in place is probably the right thing to do in a lot of cases, so.
And it's working.
Yeah, enrollment.
Here we are with enrollment.
Oh, good stuff. Kids who wanna come here.
Yay. All right, well, let's dive into this. Aaron and I are gonna play tag on this a little bit. So 24-25 enrollment overview. These are the two most important dates we have about our pupil counts, which is our third Friday in September. We've talked a lot about that. I think you guys have a great handle on that. Our upcoming count is the second Friday in January. And that is the enrollment snapshot that is used for what our part of our equalization aid formula for 25-26. So that is a very important count date. It doesn't mean everybody has to be here on that Friday, but they have to be here sometime prior and sometime after. And so that is what that count date is strictly for. Each count has the following components. It's about the total students in attendance, which is our resident and our non-residents. And then for snapshots to determine these two counts, we take the total students, we minus the non-resident students, we minus out our 6603 agreements. That would be like our Burmester Woods agreement that we have with the Oregon School District. And then we add into our count the residents that might be attending other schools. That is the basics of those counts. If you ever wanted to have further conversation, please set up a time with me and we'll take 45 minutes to go through a lot of those other areas. Aaron,
Yes, so if you, just to give you a little bit, we're going to share a lot of numbers with you, so be prepared. This is the simplest place to start. So if you look kind of over that year span, 2019-20 to 2024-25, the largest increase in enrollment we've had, total enrollment in any one year is 77, and the largest annual loss is for this year, which is 85. So, you know, you look at the scope of that, generally pretty stable. Other districts in our area are seeing similar decreases, and we always have those fluctuations as they do. That's largely due to lower birth rates. That's the primary reason. Also, just housing, both in the area and elsewhere. We have people that move to other communities, other states, people that would love to come here and can't. So that is one of the issues that impacts our enrollment. And of course, there are other alternatives that students have access to, from homeschool, private education, charter, virtual learning. We'll talk about some of those numbers in a little bit. So when you look at where those 85 kids, where those losses predominantly have been happening, you can see it's really, you have the kindergarten, first and third grade, so largely a younger student issue, but also seeing that a little bit in 8th grade and in 12th grade. But those things do fluctuate from year to year, but I thought that was something you might be interested to see. And there are cohorts that are bigger and smaller. That 7th grade group is real big right now. All right, I think this
All
is
right.
Jeff.
Yeah. So I'm going to roll through a number of slides here, and obviously this one looks a little bit better on the next slide, which is the graphic. You can see that our resident and our open enrollment has fluctuated from 2012-13 to now, with, over 2,500 students in that 18-19 year. Now, when we move on to resident only, again, this is
Lots and
for
lots.
reference that you can see by year and grade, but we'll jump to the slide. So our resident only, as you can see, in 12-13, which coincides back with when we had a lot more open enrollment, because we had more space, because we had less resident. And now you can see that, 22-23 was our last kind of high. Now we've been dipping downwards.
So, what is open enrollment? So, regular open enrollment, that's done online, fairly simple process through the Department of Public Instruction, and then that starts in February, right at the start of February, and it's through April 30th. And those are really solid deadlines, annual deadlines. We really can't start doing anything with the data until after April 30th. Now, once a child is approved, it is valid through their graduation. And now, their need for special services, if that changes, that is based on the open enrollment availability for those services. It also will continue until they move, obviously, into our district, and they're no longer open enrolled then, which happens a fair amount, to be honest. And as you know, as we will be discussing in the near future, that is a financial benefit to the district to have more residents versus open enrollment. There's an alternative open enrollment window, which occurs during that other period that you'll see there. And there's specific indicators that people must prove during that alternative open enrollment window. Another thing that we see a fair amount of is a current year tuition waiver. So this is families here after the, up through the third Friday, and then they move, but they don't want to switch. They'd rather just finish out the year. So then they complete a form. That means we're not going to charge them tuition. We've already received, they've been counted in our count, and so you get to keep continuing here. But a family does need to complete the paperwork.
And
Yes.
what if a family plans to move into the district, let's say October 15th, and they want to start on the first day of school? Do
So-
they still qualify for a tuition waiver?
Well, what we have is we have ways for people to prove that they are a resident. So that's something that, our district registrar, Emily Broom, works with the family on. So I've bought a house, I've built a house, our closing date is, so there's,
The
Form
state
of
law has what's known as the 9-week waiver process, of which if a person is in that situation of building the house, let's say it gets delayed, they actually also have a second additional 9-week waiver that can be put in place if there's some legitimate reason of what's going on. So it really does
it's a
exactly
long
what Aaron.
time.
Yeah, it
Yep.
is, yeah.
It's a semester.
Yeah,
It's a nice option for families.
Yes.
It happens a fair
A lot.
amount. It really does, and it's good for kids for that. So in terms of denying open enrollment, it's really limited. It's not a judgment situation that districts can make. It's really, fundamentally, it's based on space limitations. So that is really what you will be setting again in January. That's what we use. Now, they can be denied or approved by both the non-resident or the resident district. But again, these are those criteria about space not being available. That is specific also to special education or related services. So, we set that. It's not just the number of kids in a grade or in a school. It's also the number of kids who have this special education service, speech and language services. We're able to serve this many kids with our existing staff. Also, students who have been expelled during the current or 2 preceding years, that's a reason that you can deny, or if it's pending. Habitually truant, that is something that does happen. A student who is open enrolled and is habitually truant can be returned to their resident district. And then if it's incomplete or not submitted.
Aaron, if a student applies under open enrollment that has an IEP, for example, we know the cost of educating a student with an IEP and the low funding back from the state. Does the home district pay the difference or not?
Would you like to talk about transfer of service?
Sure. So there's a few things here. First of all, as Aaron just mentioned, there's a transfer of service. So if we have a student that moves into our district and wasn't previously in our district and we weren't receiving the aid that the other district might have been receiving the previous year on that student, we're able to put that into our revenue cap as transfer of service. To fund open enrollment students that cost more than the amount that's provided to us, which is over about $13,000. The difference between $13,000 and $30,000 becomes part of your aid calculation, so you can receive additional monies. And then for those students, similar to whether they're resident or non-resident, students over $30,000 in costs, then you're able to go through the high cost reimbursement process, which you provide a lot of information to the state, the actual costs, and then you receive that money. So in essence, in some ways, you almost get treated better with our non-resident students because there's a lot more calculations that can be done. But really, the state's kind of made it fair, partly because of the piece that they put in that the school district's not required to go above and beyond its staffing capacities to take care of its residents. And if there's availability in their programming, like speech therapy is a big one, that, if you have a speech therapist that, let's say you're in a smaller district and that person's K-12 and they have 48 people on their caseload, the district's not required to service another student because the district has capped their caseload at 48. They're not required to go find more services and pay for that because you wouldn't be able to find a speech therapist for one more student. So there's been a lot of good things put in place. I mean, this is 28 years this program's been in place now.
Transfer of services.
Open enrollment.
Open enrollment, oh, yeah.
So it's evolved.
And I will say that it's a testament to Jeff and his team that we do access those resources, because one of the things you'll find when districts start talking about budgets and operational referendum, people say, well, now, are you completing all your paperwork for transfer service for high cost? And we always are.
Yeah.
So that's like, I remember going to a conference you know, in my first year, I think, as superintendent, and then coming back. Now, are we doing this, Jeff? And he's like, okay, here you go. Here's what we've been doing, you know, because it's just one of those things where there are districts that have all of a sudden discovered, like, we're shorting ourselves $600,000 or something.
Yeah,
So it happens.
so, yeah, Lauren Arango, and
Yeah.
Sandra Young,
Yes,
Um,
Sandra Young, yeah.
and Carrie Roberts. I mean, it takes 4 people to process all of that paperwork. I would
Good
say
point.
80-plus hours of combined time. But for our school district, last year is just over $200,000 for the costs above and beyond,
Wow.
30,000 in expense that we brought back.
Wow.
Only half of the school districts in the state of Wisconsin last year applied because it is rather onerous. It's tedious. It's a lot of information. I mean, you're basically translating an IEP into a spreadsheet. Yeah.
Well, $200,000 is significant, so.
It is.
Yeah.
That's
It's
good to
worth the
know.
work.
Yeah.
When you look at our open enrollment statistics for this year, so we have 137 students in, 56 students out. You always want it to be in the positive, and that's been our trend here in our district. We talked a little bit about those transfer costs. You can see those numbers there. Jeff just mentioned both of those. But when you're looking at that, that's an estimated net gain of over 720,000 to the district, with that having more students in than out. So now Jeff's going to take us through some of the,
Aaron, do we know why
Stats.
56 students left the district?
we will get to that. Good preview.
And that's Aaron's slide too. So I get
my
to talk
slide.
about the ends.
So chart,
So again, yep, we're gonna go right to the graphic. As you can see, you know, if we piece this together with that resident enrollment slide, our enrollment was low for residents in that 2012 through 2017, 18, 19 timeframe, and it's went down because our resident enrollment grew. And with the policies and procedures the districts had, we've balanced that out. So we are kind of at one of our lower periods of time with open
Yeah.
enrollment in.
yeah, I think that, I just want to emphasize this. It's not that we were doing something where people didn't want to come here. We just reached capacity. We didn't have space, is essentially what it is.
Yeah. So it's very geographic where our students come from and into the McFarland School District or want to come from, that being most notably Madison Metropolitan School District and Stoughton School District, and then some from Oregon, Monona, and then 6 other districts. Why geographic? The parents have to be very committed to making sure their student is here every day or get into that truancy problem. So. Open enrollment out.
All
Aaron.
right, that's me. Numbers. So here's, you can see the chart here, and you can see that, you know, while it's still a relatively small number of students, it is a number that you've seen, you know, increase over time. You can see really the impact of the pandemic there, but those numbers have been fairly consistent since that time. So it's not as though we've seen a big drop since that time. So what do we know about these students and where they're going? We had 20 new open enrollment out applications this year. 71% of those students have never attended our district. So it's important for us to know that it doesn't mean that a student was here attending our schools and then decided to go somewhere else. They're just residents that don't go to our school. So often it's a case where someone moves into the community but chooses to keep their kids where they were for whatever reason, especially secondary. That's kind of what we find, and kids can often drive themselves. And I just want to finish high school, you know, in this district. 14% are 4K students, and they typically will come back for kindergarten. So they're open enrolling out because there's 4K near where my parents work, and they want to drop me off there and get wraparound care there. And then they'll come here when they have full day kindergarten. 14% in non-WEVA virtual schools. And then the most of the students, would make sense, most of the students coming in are from Madison. Most of those going out are also attending Madison, followed by Monona Grove, Stoughton, and Sun Prairie. So when I first looked at this data, as a new soup, what I was really surprised at was that 71%. Because to me, that made a lot more sense of like, what's happening? Why are these students leaving? They're not leaving. They're just not coming.
Yeah.
For a variety of reasons. So that was helpful. We also do have students, of course, that do home-based instruction. And typically about 22 families, about 32 kids. We often, that data for the younger kids isn't accurate because they don't need to attend school, so they don't have to report. I will say that what it requires for someone to provide a home-based education to their kids is to go onto DPI and click a button and say, I'm providing my kid instruction. So it's a very simple process. And we do have kids who receive home-based education that also come here and take classes. We'll see that often with musics or in sports. And then a lot of times as kids get older, it becomes more and more difficult to provide homeschooling just because of the rigor of the courses, and then they'll join us later on. Our enrollment, you'll see, increases as kids get older.
So Aaron, if parents are opting for homeschooling, and they just have to click a button for DPI saying they're going to be homeschooling, are there requirements? Are there minimum requirements? And is there any type of follow-up by DPI?
I think they agree that they're going to provide a certain number of hours of instruction, but there's no accountability.
So it's on the honor system.
It is on the honor system, yep. It is, and most do an outstanding job, I'm sure. So I don't mean to imply that they don't. I'm just saying the process is very user-friendly. It wasn't always, but now you can do so much virtually. So what are we looking at in the future, Mr. Mahoney?
Well, so if we look at our resident, I should have put that up there, resident enrollment projections, you'll see on the left, moving to the right, you'll see 2018-19, that, our resident enrollment has started to decrease. Again, that's why, in another couple slides, we'll talk about available open enrollment. But you can see that for 25-26, we're expecting another decrease, and we'll be approaching 2,000 students that are resident if we were not to see any large new subdivisions or different birth rate trends in our county. So this is probably fairly reliable. When I look back at what I've predicted in resident enrollment in other years, this is the trend, and this is why, this graphic just kind of shows, again, the estimates for the next 6 years. If you go to the next slide, Aaron, I think this is a little easier. If you just take a look at the high school, again, if we're just focusing on where we predict our resident enrollment to be, and this resident enrollment includes our existing open enrollment students that are moving, not new open enrollment. So the 725 at the high school next year includes the residents that are here and, our projected potential changes in resident, because we do see usually in migration for our resident growth at the high school. But this also includes those that have been attending as non-resident. So you can see what our counts are for our high school going through 20, 30, 31. The lowest we've been at the high school since I've been here has been 650. So, and that wasn't that long ago. It was about 10 years ago. So we've went up and now we're starting to go back down again.
It's interesting because you can look at these numbers and you look at the 568 down to 491. Those of us that have been around a minute, when I first started at the middle school, I think it was like 450. So it has really changed over the course of time. So very interesting.
And that also, that kind of goes to the next slide, Aaron, because when the 2016 referendum went through and we started to do building capacities, the middle schools, number of students allowed, we were closer, I think, to the 160 mark because we just didn't have space at the middle
Right.
school. So when all the construction was done, we migrated the middle school to, let me talk about this chart a little bit. So on the left, you can see the different grade spans, the early child 4K CEPS, which has the 5K 1 and 2, and then WOBISA 3, 4, 5, middle school 6, 7, 8, high school 9, 10, 11, 12. Our space limits for open enrollment was mathematically calculated probably 19 years ago is when we actually had to refresh those before the construction around this last time. But what you're available to do in the state of Wisconsin is to determine your space that you feel is an amount based on, and I don't have the formula with me, based on where you think your enrollment's going to be for resident, plus where your limit you want to be with open enrollment students. Then you would take your estimate, so I'll use our kindergarten. 160 kids is the space that we say we have available. That gets us an 8-track, 20 kids per class in that grade level. And we're estimating 154 students next year. So that would mean that available space would be 6 for open enrollment. That does not mean that that's our limit on the number of students that actually could be in the building for kindergarten. We have, each class has 2 available classrooms to expand into. So at kindergarten, we have 2 classrooms that could be used for kindergarten. If we were to have all of a sudden, let's say a company that moves in and housing is available immediately, the district's prepared for influx at the CEPS. Then at WOBISA through the high school, we've set that limit to be 176 because over time, there'll be a number of kids moving in and also, usually just move-ins. So available seat-wise, you take the space determination minus our estimate, which also includes usually like, I think in this one I have a 2% air factor. Like, we can be wrong, but we usually put it at about 2% to 4%. The higher percentage we usually put in years that we know we have housing stock, and then we tighten it down when we know we don't have as much housing stock. So CEPS we're looking at for next year for action item in January, on January 13th, is that we'd be approving 6 at kindergarten, 19 for first grade, 13 for second grade, and then WOBISA would be 3 at third grade, 22 at fourth grade, and 6 at fifth grade. I did kind of skip over 4K also is at looking at about 27 openings. That's not our highest amount we've ever had. We've had an estimate as low as 99 with a 136 as our limit. So, you know, and we filled that. The earlier you have the openings, the more likely families will come to us. And that's why we haven't had this trend for a while, is because we've had lots of residents. When you look at the middle school, you'll see that we are not negative 15 available seats. We're not moving anybody back to their home district. That just shows you that that class has grown over time. And the 7th grade is pretty much right on. And that 8th grade class is one of, you know, our earlier open enrollment classes, and it's had growth. But it's near our, what we call our grade level capacity of our building, our constructed building, which is about 200. So this policy has really worked well for nearly 20 years. The high school is going to have a little opening at 9th grade. But again, as you can see, those 10th, 11th, and 12th grade classes have, again, you know, been growing over time. So our policy, while it has not been challenged for a few years, we have successfully, I think 5 times since this policy was put in place, about 20 years, we've been challenged, and we've been successful in the challenges that our board policy has held. So,
You're talking about challenges by,
so if a parent doesn't
Parents?
agree that we deny based on
Oh, I see.
space, there's an appeal process with DPI. They take our information, we produce the why, how we got to our calculations, and
Jeff, I thought when we added to the high school, it was gonna be
200?
capacity of 800 with class
Yeah.
size is about 200.
Yeah, that is correct. That did not change because of the fact that the space above us, instead of it being 6 classrooms, that was determined to be a shift in program usage, so. And based on our resident enrollment and kind of the size of this facility, it probably works out okay that didn't migrate to 200.
And then these projections are within our district class size. We've since changed, I should have changed this slide, I forgot to do that. From, instead of saying optimal class size, we're saying target class size. Because optimal means the best case scenario. But the numbers there, which you reviewed in response to the failed referendum and established, are consistent with what we're using for our recommendations that you'll have a chance to vote on in January.
And I understand the difference between optimal and target, but from my experience, and we all agree that today's students are vastly different, more challenging. I would say even 20 or 21 at first, well, primary up through 5th grade, that seems high now compared to what we used to have. But that's just my bias.
So I do know, Tom, that the averages that, and the optimal or target size that we've used has been based on our history.
Well, that was the history when I came in
Yeah.
'87.
Right, so I don't think our class size average targets have changed. At least in my 20 years, they haven't.
And they haven't since '87. What
Right.
I'm saying is that the challenges have changed.
Yeah.
And the
Okay,
I see what you're
difficulty
saying. I see what you're saying.
within the classrooms have changed drastically.
Well, yeah. While the financial resources have also changed.
Yeah,
It's target and not optimal. It sounds like what you're saying is
It's-
optimal from a student perspective, is
lower.
things would be smaller.
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
That's
Well,
target.
and from a teaching perspective.
Yes.
what I wanted to kind of look at here is, on this last slide, is just a what if. What if we didn't have any current open enrollment? What if we just had our resident and we went kind of by our guidelines of what we would have for classroom home teachers? Kindergarten through 6th grade, we would not have a single grade level that have 8 teachers.
Yeah.
Many of these classes, 4th and 5th and 2nd would have 6. And we have been down to 6 before, a long time ago. We had creative years where we had 6.5 because Tom Mooney worked with us on like, all right, I can't support a full-time teacher, but I can support having a math reading specialist pull out. But this is what it'd be kind of like living in that open enrollment, without open enrollment. And one of the important things here is when you start to get down to these levels, that means your Phi-Ed staff are not fully full FTE potentially. Your music teachers, your
down now.
art, those in your wheel. So that is one of the reasons why we do try to maintain what we call the 8-track for our K6. It's not anything about my first car with an 8-track in it, but it's more about trying to make sure that if we have an 8-track, it works well with how everything flows, and we're making sure that our related arts are also full, because if you get into part-time employment with related arts, you're not gonna keep people.
Well, you lose electives too.
Yep,
Yep.
yeah, and when you get to the
It's just, you can't,
middle school, high school,
yeah.
if you're trying to survive just on resident, at least in our school district, we would be at a significant disadvantage. Now, that said, we are competing with our neighbors because all of our surrounding districts have space available too. Wanakee, Middleton, those were some of the districts that never had space. They had more space openings this last year than they previously ever had. So, each of the districts,
So do you anticipate, that was the question that's going through my mind, is we're doing it since it's pretty widespread throughout Dane County. Could it change? I mean, in that sense,
yeah, I mean, it really depends on the housing stock and affordability, so that people can move in. You know, certainly, you know, births can start to happen, but that doesn't seem to really take place. You know, we don't see them for 4 to 5 years. So,
And I would say this, when open enrollment started, they really saved at least the primary school and probably Wabisa, because they were able to maintain the number of classrooms. Without them, we would have ended up with this much sooner.
yeah.
So they really were an asset to the district.
and this last year with the fact that we had a number of move-outs, you know, and we have classes that have 7 instead of 8. We had staff that were leaving to go elsewhere, so we didn't have to go through that attrition process that, you know, this is what a lot of school districts, this is what rural Wisconsin looks like.
That's
Yeah.
That's the nightmare.
Laying people off.
Right.
Yeah. It's horrible.
Other questions?
Do we know, of all students that come into the district as open enrollment students, and they remain as residents of their home original school district, how many of them leave after 1 or 2 years to go back to their home school?
I don't know that statistically, but anecdotally, I don't think that's very common.
I was just curious. You don't have to worry about it, Jeff. but-
Yeah, most people, when they get here, they stay.
Well, I
here.
have, I didn't put that, we do have that as a breakout
probably have
chart,
it
but not in this
somewhere.
report. It shows, you know, from year to year.
Yeah.
And those class sizes for our open enrollment kids
Mhm.
really never go down from, you know, their
No.
enrollment class.
Yeah.
Yeah, that hasn't really ever fluctuated. The 4K fluctuates
Right.
between every district because our 12 are going to this daycare in that
Yeah.
part of Dane County, and some are coming over here, and then they move on, so. I would say stable.
That's a good answer. I'm just thinking about the projections that they're making for Dane County in the future. Just a significant population increase.
And again, that, those population increases are really being pushed forward on the east corridor of the interstate, and will be really impacting DeForest, Marshall school districts, Sun Prairie. Sun Prairie's has a growth model of another 70,000 population in the next 10 years. So 70,000. That population that would be in the Sun Prairie area school district.
Yeah.
But City of Madison, and then the other contributing.
A lot of unknowns.
Yeah.
If you build
Anybody have any
if
other-
you build an Amazon, need employees.
Oh, wow.
Thanks for making this easy to understand, Jeff. I appreciate it.
Appreciate it, guys.
And Aaron,
Thank
too.
you.
Very much. All right, then we'll move on to, and I believe this is, I think Angie and I discussed this, the resolutions for this year's delegate assembly were sent out and received, but apparently they were incorrect.
The packet that was attached, that is accurate.
That's accurate.
I was able to download the.
Okay, all right.
And it's not something you take action on, it's just
Right.
information. Craig will be there representing as those resolutions are discussed.
They're great resolutions. I was so impressed.
It'll be very interesting.
It
I
will
Should
was-
be.
I was waiting to see how long it's gonna take you to get through all those.
It varies wildly.
Well, one of the ones that I really appreciated was the free and reduced
Yep.
lunch program. Our students who are unable to pay their hot lunch fees, to create a special fund for those accounts.
Yeah, I thought they're outstanding. I like the one on educational objectives because, I don't know, it talked about the idea that it was gonna be getting students ready for college, workforce, and career, and I felt like they should have also said in their little summary there, and also developing future citizens. 'Cause
Yeah.
they talked about, critical thinking and problem solving, and God knows, we need that. And it's wonderful.
Civics is getting back into the
It is.
discussion in a
It's
much bigger
wonderful.
way.
Yeah.
I should say, I should give some context, because I think most of us know what this is for, but the Wisconsin Association of School Boards brings forward from, ideas from the people they represent for ideas for things they want to advocate for. And they will then discuss them at length at the state convention in January. And so, as board president, Craig Howard will be there, being a part of that, and they vote and they decide which ones are gonna move forward for advocacy and which ones will not.
It can be an interesting hour and a half, or it can be an interesting 4.5 hours. It really does. I mean, some of those discussions just,
Do they get heated?
they get heated, and they just get to a point where it would go on all day if they let it.
Is this
So
when the
it's
Robert's
old
Rules of
call the
Order come into
question.
play?
Call the
Oh,
question.
very much so.
Yeah, that happens. Virtually everyone. Okay,
All right.
District Administrator's Report, Mr. Tarnitzer.
Well, it's good to see you, everyone. I haven't seen.
Welcome back.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you to Mr. Mahoney for covering for me while I was away.
He was outstanding.
Yes, I watched the board meeting. I'm gonna remind you to speak close up to the mic, everybody. I didn't watch it while I was gone. I watched
Oh.
it since.
Okay, I was gonna say, really?
I've watched it since that time. I remind you to speak into the microphone. So some things that have happened since that time, we had 7th and 8th grade orchestra concert. We had a high school band concert. We also, the middle school hosted an internet safety presentation that was put together through the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, and Lauren Noriega, school social worker at the middle school, put that together. And I think I heard we had like 18 families, I think, that attended, so that was great. Talking about, how to set boundaries for kids and keep them safe online. There was also a virtual meeting of the Greater Dane County School District Governance Consortium meeting, so that met virtually while I was away and talked about school funding and things we want to advocate for with our legislature as a collective across area districts. There was, of course, Winter Wonderland in the village, and you heard about the craft and vendor fair with, over 100 vendors. And I love this idea of the young entrepreneurs that shared their products. So really great event across the community, but included the school district as well. We also had the high school induction for the National Honor Society occurred while I was out. So 40 new members were inducted, so congratulations to them and recognition of their hard work. The middle and high school choir concert also happened. I saw a little snippet of that in the Monday Minute that the high school sends out, so that's kind of fun. And Wabisa also had their orchestra concert, so a lot going on. I want to give a special recognition for our principals. They put together a forum where families can ask questions or give feedback to buildings. So on the website and in their weekly s'mores, there's a little link to a forum where people can say, I was wondering about this. Because often it's like, I don't know who to contact. I don't want to bother this person. So thanks to them for putting that together. That's connected with our strategic plan and communication. Of course, you heard about the poli-sci full session today. Great event getting underway, so thank to those that are involved, especially bringing a new curriculum to our high school. I love in the MRAP weekly update about our recreation programming, that newsletter they're sending out. Alicia's doing such a great job with that. I think it's a nice way for people to see some of the things that are going on. I'm in the process of developing a community newsletter to be sent out to people who do not have kids in the district, and that will be a major resource for that, with things going on at the Performing Arts Center that people may not know about, that are open to the public.
Yeah, that was gonna be one of my shout outs too, is seeing that the PAC events in that,
Yes.
included in the MRAP. I just thought that was really cool.
Yeah.
To
Yep.
combine the two, totally makes sense.
And there's a lot being planned, but I don't want to,
Yeah. That's right.
tip off anything in case they fall through. You may have heard, you have heard about the Sparks grant that's being done. Appreciate those that are involved in leading that. And that's really about making our recreational activities more accessible to people and inclusive of people with disabilities. And so there's a group forming that are going to provide some advice and leadership with that, so.
It's very rare that school districts and community recreation programs, are hand in glove like ours is.
Yes,
It's a rare school district that does this.
it is. It's typically run by other entities. Also, thank you to Lauren Arango. She's overseeing the school mental health grant, and one of the things that she's doing with that is providing learning opportunities for our staff as they look to grow professionally and address their own mental health needs and wellness resources. So she sent out a list of books that people may be interested in reading to help them grow, and so I've got a couple coming myself here. Thank you. Bruce and I attended the Wisconsin Public Education Network event on Saturday to talk about how to advocate for a just budget that supports public education. So we were able to attend that on Saturday, and at times felt inspired, at times felt slightly depressed.
Was it well attended?
Yes.
Actually, it was amazing.
They were at capacity, so they actually had to bring in additional chairs. There were 70-some people that gave up part of a Saturday on a not great weather day to be there. I'll jump into some photos here. Lots to share, because we didn't do this before. I think I'm going to actually share it with you instead of just looking at it really nice on my screen. Forgot I was was not doing it. So you can see here, I know we've talked about this a little bit, but they had the book read, Conrad Albion Primary School had the family book club, and it culminated in watching the movie on the big screen in the PAC with almost 500 people
Oh, they must have loved that.
gathering to do that. What a great
That
thing.
is awesome.
Love that idea. So thanks to those involved in that hard work featured in the middle there. Also, you got some scientists. Look at that. Look at that when that weather was just so gorgeous out there. Looking for signs of fall in the school forest. So, using that resource right here in our community. Great thing there. I don't know if you've ever seen the Wabisa word. It's in the s'more, so 9 minutes today. So we had over 100 students take part throughout the course of the year doing that. I get such a kick. The bloopers are my favorite, or how they pretend like they're drinking coffee. But they do a great job and sharing that information. It takes a lot of work to get that produced.
skills they're learning.
Yeah.
Just awesome.
It's good. They have a great time with that. Computer Science Week recognized here. You can see some coding being done. Boy, our students are tech savvy. Something to be celebrated here at Wabisa. Orchestra, learning many new skills. The first time they pick up those instruments is something. And you can see the students that have earned their bow license. Not bow and arrow people. So congrats to them. You can see that there. Science Bowl, I always love the Science Bowl. Participants, 7th and 8th grade there. You can see just really excited. They are such a motley crew of amazing minds. And they get to go and compete with other schools. So I think doing a practice day there. The IMMS Club Unified, they were making ribbons for the athletes participating in the Special Olympic Games. So neat event there, students volunteering to do that. Appreciate that. French students, I don't know how to speak French, so sondage, okay. A survey that was all done in French. Oh, yes.
That helped out a little bit.
If you say so.
The survey was about those words there.
And that's Les Pastons.
Oh, les Pastons. I learned a little bit of German last week, but not French. Sports, hobbies, things. It's really neat, and it had to be all done. And that's 6th grade. No English allowed, so great exploratory program. 6th graders here, you can see they're making their presentations about Amazon rainforest groups, so talking about sustainability in our environment and our climate. Great work there. You can see the 7th grade scientists, look at that, they're making a bridge, designing a bridge. That's pretty impressive. It's holding a lot of stuff there.
Oh, yeah.
It's a lot hanging from it.
Yeah, pretty well done.
Oh, that was
And everybody, I hope you saw
That's
this
amazing.
about
It's
Sierra,
amazing.
right?
That is
great.
so cool.
She's amazing.
There were so many great entries, but I have to say that, because I always vote, it was pretty easy to vote for the top one, because that is just mind-blowing, so.
Can we get prints of those made and like sell them as a fundraiser?
We could,
I think
I
that would be a
think,
great
well,
idea.
I mean, that's
What
up
a
to the
talent,
It's a
author
good idea.
or
Yeah.
the
It's a
artist.
nice idea.
But-
Wouldn't that be great,
Yeah.
especially
Yeah.
with everything going on right now?
I think she's gonna go pretty far with this one,
I was gonna say, I think she goes to state next.
yeah.
and then
I think she
national.
won regional, yeah.
Yeah.
But I think she's got a good chance. So thanks to the Lions
She's
Club
so
for
talented.
What a
sponsoring that.
mind that girl
And
has.
Sandy
when she
Shane.
looks- describes it. It's like, oh my gosh.
Sandy
They did
Shane coordinates
detail.
that with the Lions Club.
Yeah,
Great work.
Sandy's amazing too.
There's that choir concert I was telling you about.
That's so
Look
cool.
at all
This was
them.
incredible. That was gonna be my other shout out, was to
Yeah.
Paul Gregg and Elise Weber and Ben Peterson, just to coordinate all of the kids. And it's a really fun program. Oh my gosh.
We've actually gotten quite a few shout outs through the website about that.
That's something we could never have done on our old
No,
stage.
that's
What
right.
about the PAC?
No, you would have been in the gym.
Yep.
Right, and the acoustics are just super wonderful.
No. And the new thing through MEP, the the Student Employee Excellent Award, I guess it's called now, starting that. So really excited to have that group back and going, and then this was one of the first tasks that they decided to do. So you see Tyler winning. We had a winner last Friday
Yeah.
as well.
I was Tyler's, I worked as a mentor with Tyler back in fourth grade over
Nice.
at Wabisa.
Great kid.
He really is.
To say he was shocked, it was pretty
Yeah.
mildly.
I think
And like the
so.
look on his face was just hilarious.
That's good.
Yeah,
Who's the freshman on the right?
very exciting. Yeah, right.
Some new kid.
It's me.
Yeah, right.
New kid on the block.
Here, the high school BSU attended
for long.
a nice event with the National Black Student Union Conference at Madison College. It's always good to get, our Black Student Union together with other leaders across the area. So, and you can see they're smiling.
That's very cool.
The committee hearings, we talked about the full session today. This was during the committee hearing that happened a few weeks ago. The cross-age stuff continues this year. There was so much stuff last year, I thought, oh, can we keep that up? Yes, Multicultural Club BSU and the AASA, Asian American Student Association, that the clubs visited CEPS, and there's plans actually to start visiting schools more often.
That is so, I think that's so important.
Yeah, it's really fun. It's good for everybody.
It is, it's great for both groups.
Some shots of the craft and vendor fair. You can see a lot of leadership from our students. Orchestra concert, student conductor there. The 18 to 21 program did a community outing, so featuring that, Firefly Coffee House, having a good time.
Framing of the community skills,
Yes,
like how much learning is
Yep.
happening just in going out into the community.
very important. You can tell they're having a great time. Our Optimist Club Senior of the Month for this month, Bryce Bland, really leader in student council and athletics and the classroom. So good representative. So thanks to the Optimist Club for sponsoring that. Oh, whoops. So, and then, yes, I got a word. Yeah. Yeah, that was just, it was nice to be recognized for trying to get better. I mean, that's really what that award was about.
Well, congratulations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well
it was very
deserved.
nice. And it was Substitute Educators Day way back when.
Wow.
And boy, we celebrate them every day. We want to be their favorite school to go to.
Well, we've done a good job.
I think so.
We've really done an
I think
excellent
so.
job attracting them.
Stuff coming up. We've got the Career Expo here at the high school tomorrow. So if you want to come and see some, got many, just take a walk around anytime between 9 and 2
Is that in, where is that?
This is in the gym.
tomorrow. Yep. It'll be in the first floor, like all the way around. Yeah,
Oh, it is?
Yep.
I think they said 30 plus.
30 plus vendors, yeah.
Oh.
Then we have so we had full session today. There'll be another full session on Wednesday. So if you did want to come and observe what that full session is for that poli-sci class, you're welcome to come. It'll be in the afternoon in the PAC on Wednesday. Tom and I will be at the Wisconsin Virtual Academy's board retreat in Green Bay on Wednesday. So we will report back on that. Student of the Month Assembly at the middle school on Friday, the talent show here at the high school. That's exciting. And then we have winter break. We also have, we want to emphasize that there's no school for students starting kind of on Monday next week. Then there's New Year's Day, of course, on January 1st, and then we're back on the 2nd. And our next regularly scheduled school board meeting, I believe, is the 13th.
13th.
So
Is
those
the
are,
talent show in the PAC?
yeah,
And that's on
Yep.
Friday?
that is on
Yes.
Friday.
This Friday?
Yep.
What
I'm
time?
not sure of the time. I have the schedule printed out in my office. but I can find out during the meeting when I'm multitasking. And that was what I wanted to share. I'll open it up for recognitions, and also you had homework to look over the Robert Rules of Order, if you want to discuss that for some enlightening conversation. we
Point of
can
order, I'm just kidding.
do that this time as well. Does any of the board members want to share?
I move that we table it.
2:35. The talent show's at 2:35.
Okay.
2:35.
You move what? That we table it?
That we table the Robert's Rule
Showing
of
up.
Order. See, I just happen to have it up on my computer right
Yeah,
now.
I think that's a good resource. So we're just, for the community, we're just trying to make sure we're following our Robert Rules procedures to the best of our ability. Anything else anyone wants to shout out?
No.
I should write them down so I remember.
Yeah, that's okay. I tried to cover a lot of territory.
You
did
did.
You did cover a lot of
You did cover a
territory,
lot.
yes.
That's good.
Okay. Shall we?
Let's get into it.
Let's do that. Action on the first is action on approval of the school safety plan. Let me get here and read this so that by state law, the board is required to approve the school safety plan every 3 years. The administration recommends approval of the school safety plan as proposed, and I would look for a motion to approve that as proposed.
I move to approve the school district of McFarland school safety plan as recommended by administration.
I can second that.
Thank you, Megan.
Chapman.
Thank you, Megan Chapman. Thank you,
That's all right,
Bruce.
I'm getting it, so.
Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously, 5-0. Next is action on McFarland High School early graduation requests.
I can make that motion. I move to approve the attached MHS early graduation request as recommended by administration.
Thank you, Bruce. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Tom. Discussion?
Yeah, I do have a little discussion. I brought this up during my first term. If you take a look at the letters that the students wrote,
Some of them are so sad.
there is an array of content in those. And a lot of reasons why early graduation is being recommended. I certainly can go along with that. But one thing that I would find useful for myself is if we had a template for them to follow.
Oh, yeah.
Good idea.
So to make sure that they do include maybe more of the information.
I think the foreign exchange student letters were the ones that were like, I have to go back.
Yeah, they were very
Oh,
sweet.
kiddo. You know?
But I don't know why necessarily. You know, they didn't say, yeah, they said they were a foreign exchange student, but so what? I mean, can they stay another year? Or the one from Ecuador? There was another South American student, I think.
Yeah.
Pinky.
Huh?
We have Pinky here. She plays on my daughter's basketball team. She's a foreign exchange student that had never played before. She's out giving it the old college try.
I was just very impressed with the number who thanked various staff members. I thought that was really cool.
What, are there
Even
things that you would like to see included?
Well, I think the rationale, how long they've been here, especially if they're an exchange student. Any suggestions that they might have for improving the process? You know, is it too cumbersome, is it not enough? Maybe appreciations also, you know, like Bruce was talking about, the number of students that, you know, articulated their appreciation for staff. And I don't know if all of them identified what they're gonna do after they got back. Some of them did, I know.
Some do.
It'll be interesting to know what they're going to be moving into next.
And that's for everyone or more specific to the
Really great.
foreign exchange?
I think for all of them, because I know in the past, some of them have wanted to take a year off, sort of a gap year, and work to earn money. Others have, they want to start their college experience sooner than later.
And I do know that they share some information. I don't know exactly what it looks like. because there's more consistency than there would be if they didn't share anything.
Oh,
I
I'm
will
sure.
tell you.
Yeah.
It's gotten actually a little better than what I even saw in my first year. So that's certainly, that's feedback that we can pass on because that has improved over time.
Yeah.
So happy to do that.
All right, anything else? If not, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously, 5-0. Next is action on first reading of policies. Do we want to go through these one at a time here?
Yes, please.
Let's do it that way. All right. The first is 2340, field and other district-sponsored trips. 5330, administration of medication/emergency care. 5430, class rank. 5460, graduation requirements. 5610.03, alternatives to expulsion and reentry plans. 6423, use of credit cards. 7540.05, assistive technology and services.
I'm sorry, can we go back?
Yes, to,
Speedy. To the new policy, the alternatives to expulsion and reentry
okay,
plans.
all right, 5610.03.
So on page, yes, on page 2, the expulsion abeyance agreement, I'm just wondering if, at the end of that paragraph, it says the agreement may include the following requirements. And maybe it's taken care of with the word may, but I'm wondering if we wanted to put in there that it's but not limited to? Because I imagine this is not an exhaustive list either.
I'm wondering, does N kind of cover other
Sure.
in that list? Do you know what I mean?
Yep. No, that's,
It says other provisions specific to the student that are designed to achieve the purpose of the plan.
yep, okay. Yeah,
That
that's
be
fine.
okay?
Then I think the word
Okay.
is fine.
I didn't realize you wanted feedback. No, I thought we were gonna make the motion first.
Oh,
I think that's why I was a little.
Which way do we wanna go? I have a comment about 5460.
yeah, we really
make
you're right. We really should have a motion
have
and
the
a
motion
second
first.
and then a discussion. You're
Okay,
right,
so I
right.
would look for a motion to approve the first reading of these policies.
I'll move to approve the first reading of the following policies as recommended by administration. Do you want me to read them all for the motion?
No,
Okay.
As listed on the
As
agenda.
listed on the agenda.
could I have a second?
I'll second.
Tom, thank you, okay. Moving on, then we've got, I'll move it
Discussion.
back.
Discussion.
So did you get through that then, Megan?
Yes.
Okay, and there's no one for 6423, use of credit cards?
No, but we have to go back further to 5460. Graduation requirements.
Oh, okay,
Get to that.
all right.
Under the specific requirements for McFarland High School graduation,
Yes.
there's an A, B, and C. And my question is about B, the district's senior portfolio and exit interview requirements. Is that still mandatory, both
Yep.
of those?
I think it is.
They are, okay,
Yes.
okay. Somehow last year I thought that it was optional.
It's just the format really changed.
Okay, yes.
Thank you.
Okay, is that it for that one?
For that one,
Yes.
Anything else back?
I think one other clarifying one about the new policies, they're ones that are written by Neola, right? And then we just,
Yeah, unless it
We
says
adopt.
district initiated.
yeah.
That's
okay,
the ones that we do,
Okay.
so. I mean, we have choices within them,
Right, yes, okay.
you know, that we make, but.
I just wanted to make sure.
All right.
Which one are we on now?
7540.05, assistive technology and services. 7544, use of social media.
Now, the question I have about that, and looking at the slides tonight, in there it says that we have to have approval from the student or the student's parents to have them on social media. So can I presume that all the pictures that were here were okay? Do they still sign like a passive permission
Yeah,
form?
don't we have a waiver?
At the beginning of the,
Every year at registration.
it's a passive?
That's what
Yeah,
that was
okay.
gonna be my
Yeah.
question,
Yeah.
is if that signing during registration covers all of
Yeah.
that, so,
Yep.
okay,
So, okay,
yep.
All right, 8395, student mental health services. 8500, food services.
let's see, I know there's change in terminology. It's talking about school nutrition services versus food services. And I think we just have to make sure it's consistent, because in 8531, we talk about the director of food service instead of the,
Yeah, I try to
Director of
change it when,
Yeah,
when I can. So if I've missed one in there, that's certainly possible. There's quite a few. So you're saying in 8531, there may be a,
make it more consistent with 8500?
So do we want to stay with food services or change it to nutrition services?
Nutrition.
Yeah.
Right?
so just double, so you're saying double check 8531 for school?
Yes,
Make
yeah,
sure it's school
yeah.
nutrition.
Just for consistency purposes.
Oh, yes, definitely.
Okay?
On page 2 of the school nutrition services policy, I don't know, 2/3 of the way down, there's, some language that is removing, or that is being taken out. Substitutions to the standard meal requirements shall be made at no additional charge for students who have received from a healthcare provider with prescriptive authority in the state of Wisconsin medical certification that the student's medical condition restricts their diet, blah, blah, blah. Why are we removing that part?
My understanding is that's changed elsewhere in the document, but now I have to find it.
Okay. It is kind of referenced elsewhere. But I think part of me wanted to make sure that it wasn't being removed because of the, at no additional charge, and now there's potential for being charged.
I know it does say, that, the paragraph up above, the green. Special terms that students, specifically with students with a disability. So that's all there.
Yep.
And that's specified in that. But I don't. So we will honor the request on that. Because I think there is a challenge, my thought about a cost is there may be significant costs that the
Right.
district could, be unable to incur
Right.
in those kind of a situation. So there's limits on what we have to provide, unless it's related to the disability as is specified above.
Okay.
But most likely, those two things go together often
Yep. Okay.
through 504.
Okay.
Okay. 8600, transportation.
Yes, page 35, I think it's the second page of this,
Okay?
if you don't know it. And it's under transportation shall be provided to A, B, and C. And we talk about 4-year-old
Okay.
kindergarten through grade 2, students who reside in the school district will be provided transportation.
Yep, all students.
And then if we go down to another section, we talk about the walking distances.
Yeah, and
That's
that,
confusing.
it is confusing. And you just have to read the next thing. I got confused on this too.
Yes, yeah,
So this is about walking distances to meet school buses.
right. I understand that.
So that's sort of the difference. So when you think about it, it's not like the walk zone, it means walking, how far we can expect the bus stop,
Right.
the distance between a home and a bus stop.
So grades first through third, we can expect them to walk half a mile to meet the bus.
Right,
No more than a half
No
mile.
more than half
Yeah.
a mile.
yeah,
And the,
yeah,
que-
and we're less than that.
and the reason why I bring this up here is that I live right behind the schools on Pheasant Run, and the school bus comes down our street. I mean, we're only 2 blocks from school. I mean, I think it's a great luxury, you know, probably a safety issue also, but I just question that. You know, especially when we're doing the referendum, we're talking about changing
Yep.
that distance and all
They're
that.
picking kids up right on your
Yeah.
street there?
Well, it's for, they usually have the.
Pardon me?
Yeah, it includes students from all the schools.
Oh, that's true.
Depending on the route. Like my kids, when they were at Wabisa, they were riding the same ones
Okay.
as that picked up on Pheasant Run.
Good
But-
clarification, Angie.
Yep. However, our current policy and practice does say that all students, there's no walk zone for a student in 4K through second grade.
Yep.
So all students are eligible to be bused at those.
And I understand that.
Yeah.
But when we're talking, going through the referendum, the
Yeah.
second, we're talking about changing that somehow.
And that certainly is something we can look at. And a reminder, we're doing that, that assessment, you know,
Yes,
of
yep.
our safe walking zones right now. And then after that, the board could certainly make decisions about transportation and frankly, to recognize financial impacts of.
I have a question. If
Those
a
things.
neighborhood has no sidewalks, does that constitute sort of a unsafe?
Hazardous.
Hazardous?
Walk zone. It could.
Because our neighborhood
Or-
doesn't have sidewalks.
Yeah, it
So-
could, or it could not,
Okay.
you know, and so I'm not an expert in that,
Yeah.
but that is why we've contracted with a third party who provides, you know, advises on that.
Yeah.
The one thing that, the big, just not to get too much on that tangent, but the big difference in that regard is that a lot of sidewalks have been added since our initial hazardous
Yeah, they
areas were
have.
established, but yet we haven't changed them.
Yeah,
No, It's been a big priority of the village.
So it gets to your point.
yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, moving on. 8640, transportation for field and other district-sponsored trips. 8660, transportation by private vehicle for district-sponsored activities or trips. 8680, transportation services contracts. 5200.01, full-time student. 5640.05, Insight School of Wisconsin High School graduation requirements. Is that all of them?
That was it.
I think that's it.
That's it, yeah.
A lot of those we had reviewed within the last
Okay.
year,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
So I've got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously, 5-0. Action on recommended WEVA, Destinations Career Academy and Insight School of Wisconsin, Wisconsin Statute 118.408G, student transfers to resident districts. At this time, WEVA, Destination Career Academy, and Insight School of Wisconsin are requesting approval for recommended student transfers back to their resident districts due to lack of engagement. Do I have a motion?
I move to approve the WEVA Destinations Career Academy and Insight School of Wisconsin recommended student transfers back to their resident districts due to lack of engagement.
Thank you, Megan C. Do I have a second?
I can second that.
Thank you, Bruce. Discussion?
I'll bring up what I usually bring up, as far as the number of students being returned to their districts, with or without support once they get there. There's 4 K through 5 students, which, I mean, it's really getting down to the minimum number. And even middle school, we have 6 students.
That's a
Compared to
big-
high
That's a
school-
big improvement over.
Compared to high school, 40 students.
Yeah,
And this list in general is a lot longer than we've seen in the last few
Yeah.
months.
Right.
I imagine that's just because
End
of
of
the
semester.
semester.
As we
right?
go along.
Okay.
Yep, and then, you know, they have to go through the opportunities to have meetings and
Yep.
things.
It is rigorous.
It is, they certainly do a lot to make sure that there's engagement before
Mhm.
they
Therefore, a lot of
transfer them back.
opportunities.
there's been a lot of changes made over there in the last decade or so, for sure.
Yep.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously, 5-0, and I would look for a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Megan C. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Megan F.
Sorry, it's way off on the time.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0, and we are adjourned at 8:55 PM.
Great.
10 minutes off, that's not too bad.
We're not that far off.
No,
That was pretty
10
good.
minutes.
Yeah.
It's
That's
okay.
pretty good.
The enrollment one went a little.